Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HGM here with some news for the Elder Scrolls Online, talking about Update 40 and the new Endless Archive dungeon. We've got tons of new information today from the ESO team and a special live stream event over on Twitch, and I'm going to break down everything for you in this video, so let's jump right into it. Now starting with Update 40, which is a base game patch coming to ESO, which will also include the Endless Archive dungeon, by the way. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. But Update 40 is set to release on October 30th for PC and November 14th for consoles. Now, Update 40 is actually going to include some nice quality of life upgrades to improve the overall game. The first of which we'll talk about is called Grandmaster Crafting Stations. This new feature will take your pre-existing attunable stations, which you may have any of the 70 plus current craftable sets in ESO, and it will actually consume those individual stations to upgrade this Grandmaster Station, collecting them all in one place, letting you craft any craftable set. Now there are going to be Grandmaster Stations for each of the different crafting disciplines in ESO, so woodworking, blacksmithing, clothing, jewelry crafting, but again, Grandmaster Crafting Stations can consume and contain all previous attunable crafting stations, basically reducing your potential crafting stations from 300 plus down to just 4 stations. Now, I don't think I can express how huge of a change this is for crafters and for guild halls, so this one is definitely much appreciated. And what's really cool too is that the Grandmaster stations are going to upgrade over time, and the look will actually change as these consume more and more attunable stations until you've eventually collected all 77, I think there are, which is a nice bonus. Now that is not the only crafting change that was discussed today. Jewelry crafting is also going to be completely redone in Update 40 to make it less time consuming and less expensive to craft and upgrade jewelry. The big reason for this is that grains are now going to be completely removed from the game. Don't worry though, if you have existing grains, when Update 40 hits, those are actually going to be converted into plating. And the nice thing is that all of this will be done automatically when you first log into ESO after Update 40 drops. So it's not something you have to worry about converting yourself, but it should make things a lot easier for those jewelry crafters out there. And another brand new feature coming to ESO is a new group finder tool. This is not a dungeon finder update. It's not even a trials finder. This is going to be for all types of group content. In this tool, you can basically set your type, so that could be dungeon, arena, trial, endless archive now, PvP, zones, or custom, and then you can set parameters like the number of players, the amount of tanks, healers, and DPS that you need, your play style, you can set a custom name and description, and a lot more. Players can then find your activity and sign up for it, so no more shouting in Craglorn or Cyrodiil, just find or build the group that you want. I think this is another amazing feature for ESO, and it's going to make things so much more convenient for group content, and especially on console where you have less access to helpful tools like this without modding. But that's all as far as what was revealed today for the base game update and quality of life. I'm sure there will be more in this update, it just wasn't shown off today. So I will be going over that in more detail on Monday, as that's when this update hits the public test server, and we'll be able to see all the patch notes, so stay tuned for that. But let's jump into the Endless Archive next. So today was our first chance to see the Endless Archive in action, and I think what we saw looked like a blast to play. Very quickly, what this is, it is a new trial or a dungeon, for lack of a better term, that can be played solo or with one companion or with one other player. So a maximum of 2 characters in the instance. Now the Endless Archive is also literally endless, just like the name says, and it consists of different rounds of random spawning enemies. Enemies can include any monster type currently in the game, as well as over 60 bosses, again, chosen from existing ESO content. So you'll see some familiar bosses from dungeons, from trials, maybe even story quests, but obviously with some altered mechanics to fit the space. You do have lives that you can lose, apparently 3 lives in total. So once you lose those 3 lives, you're going to be out and you must start over at the beginning. The main reward for completing the Endless Archive is class sets, a brand new addition to ESO. There is 1 class set for each class, so 7 of those in total. We'll talk more about those in just a minute. But maybe the biggest surprise of all with Endless Archive is that it is completely free content. This is not paid DLC, it's not an expansion. just part of the base game itself, so it's going to be accessible to everyone, which is great. Now, we did get to see a live demo of Endless Archive in action, and I have to say it looked pretty great. The arenas themselves were fairly tight and compact with a little bit of walking and moving around, but not a ton, so much more similar to Maelstrom Arena than Vatterstrand Arena, if you're familiar with both of those, which I actually prefer Maelstrom Arena, so I was happy to see this. We saw how enemies spawn in at random, but not completely random. Basically, you'll get a random set of enemies, so you might have a set of Daedra enemies spawn in, followed by a set of goblins, for example. Now, the way that rounds work in Endless Arena is very specific, so each basic round is called a stage, which you're already seeing here in the gameplay. 3 stages make up a cycle, which is then topped off by a boss encounter, which again is going to be one of those 60 random ESO bosses. And after 5 of those cycles get completed, you're then going to challenge the Endless Archive Big Boss, which marks the completion of one arc. This is a much tougher encounter that will give you one of those class set pieces as a reward. Once you've completed that first arc, the process basically starts over. So 3 stages, then you do your cycle boss, do that 5 times, so 5 cycles, and then you complete another arc for another set piece. That's how the loop works. Of course, each stage, and especially each arc, the difficulty of the encounters does increase. During the live demo, we saw the biggest increase in difficulty seemed to happen after Arc 1 was completed, so moving into Arc 2. Enemies started to hit harder and also had significantly more health. We also got to see a random boss encounter happen during Arc 2 called the Marauder. This is a very challenging boss, basically equivalent to the Arc boss, but the Marauder spawns at random, so there is some potential for huge chaos here, though that only happens at Arc 2 and higher. There are also random encounters and quests that pop up throughout. Sometimes these show up as portals where you may need to challenge another side boss or start a quest like collecting tome pages, or you could even chase down like a treasure scamp that we saw. And I'm sure there's many other options that we didn't see, which are going to make things a lot more interesting. I didn't even talk about power-ups yet, which are a huge part of Endless Archive, and one of the coolest things that we saw, actually. So there are 2 types of buffs you can get here. The first one is called a Verse, and it's a buff just for the upcoming stage, and these will either increase your damage, increase your defense, or give you some utility like extra gold, just again for that stage. At the start of each stage, you're going to be given the choice from 2 of these verses, and then that verse is going to go away at the end of the stage, but you get to pick a new one basically. And these buffs are actually extremely powerful. For example, we saw one that increases the damage of your class-based skills by 50%, 50%. But again, these are only with you for one stage at a time, and then they get replaced. Then there's Visions, which are buffs that stay with you through the entire Endless Archive. So these are long-term buffs. And these are earned by defeating the boss at the end of each cycle. So generally, the Visions are going to be much less powerful, like let's say 5% bonus dot damage. But again, the thing about Visions is that these stay with you your entire playthrough, and they can also stack. So the longer you stay alive in the Endless Archive, the more powerful your character becomes, helping you advance to later arcs. So I really did like this because it's almost like a part of your build or an addition to your build that you're progressing and unlocking over time, which was really cool. I don't want the video to go on too long. This is really just a taste of what's to come, but a few more quick things that you might be wondering about. Number 1 is there's no way to change the difficulty for Endless Archive. In fact, there's no normal or veteran version to choose. The difficulty doesn't even change based on how you queue in, so solo or with another player or companion. It's all the same difficulty. Now, there will be different leaderboards, however, so one leaderboard for solo and one for duo or with a companion. You can also start solo and add another player or companion later if you want, and obviously that's going to change which leaderboard you end up on. Now, regarding leaderboards as well, Endless Archive is not a timed activity, so completing rounds faster is going to have no impact on your score or leaderboard progression at all. Endless Archive is actually all about survival, so focusing on damage, which has really been the meta in most other arena content, for ESO might actually not be the best idea. The demo we were shown, in fact, showcased 1 DPS and 1 tank, for example, and that seemed to actually work quite well, especially on the boss rounds. And one other quick note here is that there's no minimum level, so you can actually jump into Endless Archive at any time. But there was also a currency which was shown off. You're going to earn this throughout each stage. And then it seemed like there were a few vendors where you could buy, boxes with those class set items where you can get a random chance at those. Various other things you can purchase with the currency as well. But overall, super impressed by what the ESO team has been able to come up with here. You can expect to see more guides and info right here on the channel as early as next week when this is going to go live on PTS and we can actually, start testing it ourselves. So make sure you're subscribed for that. But other than that, let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. What do you think about the quality of life changes coming in Update 40? And what do you think about the Endless Archive? Definitely curious to see what you all have to say. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there. And I will see you around in the next video.